Welcome to day 2 of our Week Without Driving Advent Calendar. 21 days of lessons and practical advice on how to navigate your city without driving a car. If you're not familiar with Week Without Driving, check out the first video in this series to learn the what, why, and how of participating, especially if you're located in the Dallas area. So back when I used to drive everywhere, I wouldn't really think hard about how I was going to get somewhere until about an hour before I needed to leave. I just checked the drive time on my phone and followed the turn-by-turn directions. But when I went car-free 4 years ago, I quickly realized that my car-oriented approach to travel would not work in the long term. I needed to get into the habit of planning my trips in advance. Here are my techniques for planning trips in Dallas without a car. First is trip chaining and bundling. Look for opportunities to bundle trips together that are within the same neighborhood or along the same route. For example, I recently planned 3 errands for one Saturday afternoon. My plan was to first take a bus to get a haircut in Old East Dallas, then find a Lime scooter and ride it to the pet store to buy supplies for my cat. Next, I'd catch another bus to a frame shop to pick up a painting that I had custom framed. Finally, I would take a train home carrying all of my items. Had I split these errands across multiple days, or bundled them with errands that were far apart, that would have added a lot of inconvenient travel time. But by trip chaining nearby errands, I completed everything I wanted to do in under 3 hours. Also, by finishing the round trip in under 3 hours, I only needed to purchase the cheapest Dart Pass available, which saved me a few extra bucks. So, as you prepare for Week Without Driving, look for opportunities to bundle errands and appointments that are within the same area or route to minimize unnecessary travel. Second technique, simplify when possible. Okay, so that plan that I just laid out, when it came time for me to actually go out and execute my plan, I made some last-minute adjustments. Originally, I forgot to account for the frame shop closing early on Saturday. I did not want to risk showing up there after they closed, so I rearranged my plan to visit the frame shop first. Then, instead of going to a barber shop that was a bus ride away on the opposite side of the neighborhood, I just switched to one that was just around the corner. So as you plan your travel, consider whether any of your destinations are flexible on their time or location so that your schedule can be simplified. Okay, next technique, choose strategic locations. Let's say you're planning to meet a friend for dinner and you're deciding between 2 restaurants. First restaurant is easily accessible by bus for you, but there are no transit options for your friend. The second restaurant is conveniently accessible by bus for you and your friend, and it offers multiple transit options. When you're choosing where and when to meet people, take a look at the DART system map. Try to pick locations that are accessible by transit for the most people in your party, and give extra points to those places with multiple transportation options. Speaking of multiple transportation options, the last technique in this lesson is finding backup routes. When planning time-sensitive trips, it's a good idea to always look for 1 or 2 backup routes in case something goes wrong. For example, let's say you live near Wynwood Village and you have an appointment at Methodist Dallas Medical Center. Your plan A might be to take bus route 109, which has a stop near your house and near the medical center. Now let's consider some backup strategies. You could leave early by planning to catch an earlier bus. That way, if you miss it or you experience delays, you'll still have time to catch the next bus on the same route. Use parallel routes. In our example, if you miss Route 109, then you might try Route 47. Use the GoPass app to track live bus locations and determine which bus is arriving next. More on that in a future lesson. Have an alternate transport. This is where having a bicycle or scooter can really come in handy if your bus is delayed, disrupted, or missed. This particular trip might take about 20 minutes on a standard bicycle or 10 to 15 minutes on an electric bicycle. Questions for reflection. Now you might be thinking, gee, this feels like a lot of mental effort just to get from point A to point B. Driving is so much simpler. And you're right, getting around without a car requires some mental effort, especially in a car-oriented city like Dallas. But just as learning to drive takes time and practice, navigating the city car-free becomes second nature with repetition. Remember, the goal of Week Without Driving is to give you first-hand experience of the challenges and opportunities faced every day by our neighbors who can't drive. By applying these planning strategies for yourself and seeing what does and doesn't work along the way, you can begin to advocate for smarter, more inclusive transportation systems for everybody. So as you're doing your planning, think about these questions. Does your neighborhood provide multiple transportation options for reaching your daily needs? How easy was it to trip chain without a car? How often did you need to rely on backup routes? How difficult was it to learn your transportation options? Alright, that's lesson 2. Today you learned how to plan effectively for Week Without Driving. So far, most of the techniques we've covered focused on preparing you as an individual traveler. But part of living in a city involves learning how to navigate shared spaces and interacting with others. In tomorrow's lesson, we'll shift our focus to communication. What to say to family, friends, neighbors, colleagues, and employers about your participation in Week Without Driving. Alright, that's it for now. See you in the next one.